Tottenham have signed Kota Takai. Who is that, you may ask? He is the centre-back in your picture tackling Cristiano Ronaldo. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why Tottenham have made Kota Takai the most expensive sale in J-League history. And no, it is not to do with shirt sales. In this video, we're going to break down exactly who he is as a player, what his strengths and weaknesses are, where he might fit in the Tottenham squad next season, how he compares to some of our other younger talents, and his experience. He's got a lot of experience at a young age, already called up to the Japanese national team. He's made 4 appearances for the national team after breaking through at under-19, under-20, and under-23 level, and has represented Japan in the Olympics as well. He's a rising star in the country, and as I said, he is the most expensive sale in J-League history. If you are new, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's going to be lots of videos on the Ben Bowman YouTube channel throughout the summer. Lots of talk about new signings. There's already been lots of videos about Thomas Frank, so make sure to go back and check a lot of those out, please, if you wouldn't mind, and make sure to like the video if you enjoy it as well. So as I said, Kota Takai is a centre-back. He's Japanese. He's 20 years old. Again, it's another signing for the future, but this could end up becoming a £5 million bargain if he does realise his potential. Now, obviously, when you look at Tottenham's squad, and we'll come to Takai as a player in a minute. There's a lot of depth at centre-half, right? And a lot of people may be asking where he's going to fit into this squad. Obviously, I've not even got Ashley Phillips on there either. Alfie Dorrington, who I think will both leave Tottenham this summer, whether that's on loan or on permanent deals. How is Takai going to fit in there? He is predominantly a right-sided centre-half. He's right-footed. But as we'll go on to talk about in the video when we talk through some of his strengths and weaknesses, he is comfortable with playing on both feet. Now, Alistair Gold said when this deal was made that he is expected to be part of the first team setup next season. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to play the whole season. What I'd imagine will probably happen is that Takai comes through the door. He gets a good run of games in pre-season, as will be the case with Luka Vuskovic. They'll probably keep both of them at the club until January and then maybe make the decision to loan one of them out if a good opportunity does arise to continue their development, or maybe loan both of them out potentially. But Tottenham had a lot of injuries at centre-half last season. We've got Dragusin, we've got Danso as well. Obviously, Ben Davies I'd probably expect to head out the door, but it's probably better to take them into the season as cover. So what are we going to find out about Takai in this video in terms of his strengths? Now, I want to start with the type of profile of centre-half that he is. He is an aggressor. He's not the quickest. He's not necessarily the best in terms of his recovery, although we have got examples of him excelling in that area. He's more of a Romero than a Van de Ven, if you think about it in terms of the partnership that already exists at Tottenham. He's an aggressor. He is a front-footed defender. He is the one that often steps up in that line to go out and intercept balls on the halfway line, win the ball back. And in Thomas Frank's system last year, that was Nathan Collins. Nathan Collins was much more aggressive. The other centre-half was much more passive. That tends to be what happens in these centre-back partnerships. You always want someone back on the recovery. And I think he would balance quite well with someone like a Van de Ven alongside him, who has got that pace to make up for the pace and the sort of rigidity that maybe Takai does have. But he's only 20 years old. He's growing into his body. All of these things can be ironed out in time. He's not necessarily going to get quicker, but he might be more comfortable with his body. Now, we're going to go through examples of his aggressiveness. We're going to go through examples of his aerial prowess in both boxes, his ability to play on both feet, his calmness under pressure as well, his distribution, which is another big factor, and I think in the reason why Tottenham signed him, and another big strength of his recovery ability and his defending in wide channels as well. And I also want to go through his performance against Al-Nasar in the AFC Champions League semi-final as well, where a lot of these strengths all kind of came together. It was a really complete centre-back performance from Takai from what I have seen. And again, look, I'm not pretending to have known about Takai before Spurs made this signing, but doing a little bit of research, it's quite clear to see why Tottenham signed him. And I think a lot of people are going to be sceptical about these kind of deals. But, for example, in this game, he's playing against Cristiano Ronaldo. He's playing against John Duran as a front two. He's playing against Sadio Mane. And he really equipped himself well at a young age at a very, very good level. And like I said, he's already made that step up to international football. Now, before we get into some of the examples, let's go through some of the stats. So Kota Takai ranked in comparison to other J-League under-23 centre-halves per 90 last season. Again, quite a niche stat there. First for interceptions, first for possession 1, first First pass completed. First for 4 pass completed. We're going to come on to his distribution. First for long pass accuracy. Again, loves a diag, by the way. Pass completion to the final third. First for goals and first for headed goals as well. And if we quickly just look at some of the stats from the current season, 20 appearances, 2 goals. In last year, 34 appearances, 2 goals as well. And like I said, he's already made 4 appearances for Japan. And we're going to come on and talk about Vuskovic as well in a second, because we've got 2 very talented young centre-halves on our hands that will be joining the club, obviously, this summer for pre-season. But let's go through some of the examples then. Let's talk about his aggression. Now, like I said, he is more of a Romero profile. You can kind of see him here next to the referee. Ball gets played out from the opposition. He's straight there into the back of the attacker, going and getting it. We see Romero do this a lot. Break the line of the defence, step up to make these things happen and turn the ball over. And again, Nathan Collins was good at this for Brentford last season. This is something that Kevin Danso is quite good at. But Romero for Spurs is the main aggressor in that back line. And yeah, that's an area for me, from doing some research on Takai, where he definitely excels. You see him do it a lot. You see it do it again here. Quickly in there. He's not blessed with the most amount of pace, but he's also quite quick to anticipate these things and make those early movements to get in, make the tackle and make things happen. He's comfortable driving forward as well, playing the ball forwards. Again here, you see it straight into the striker. Again here, into the back of the striker. Winning that ball at all costs. Here again, steps up, wins it, and the composure with the back heel to flick it back into the path of the midfielder who plays it forward. Again, this is what I really like about Takai, and this was the screenshot that I used on the thumbnail. Long ball, he is the one that steps up from that defensive line, reads it, chests, composure, little bounce, and then that's a lovely ball. And we're going to talk about his distribution, as I said, because it's a real facet of his game and a real strength of his. Lovely little clipped half volley ball over out to the winger. And again here you can see opposition team attacking. Number 2 there, Takai, is the furthest stepped up in that defensive line. Obviously leaves that space in behind. He has got a defender that he can rely on the recovery, but he's the one that steps up and intercepts. Again here, not necessarily aggression in terms of stepping out, but that strength, that frame that he's got, that 6'3", 192 centimetre frame, just shoves you off, says, no, that's my ball, I'm going to throw you to the ground. You can see there, the striker goes flying. Again here, last few examples of the aggression, straight into the back of the striker, turns it over, and again, last example here, him doing exactly the same thing and just winning it back. Really good, not necessarily giving fouls away, good at just winning the ball back cleanly but aggressively. Very, very strong. In terms of his aerial prowess then, he's a real threat in both boxes, and we'll come to the more defensive side of the game when we talk about Al-Nasar. But one thing we do know about Thomas Frank is that utilisation of set pieces. Brentford were an incredibly strong set piece team, both attacking and defensive-wise over the years, but mainly from an attacking point of view, and that is an area where Spurs do need to improve. And Takai, again, a range of different headers, loves getting on the end of it. You can see him here, number 2, just in front of the penalty area, the penalty spot there, making that arch run round, big leap, bang. Again here, in the middle of the box, header into the corner. This one's a near post run, flick on, really powerful header. Vuskovic, great at this as well. And it's in, and again here, another goal. So I think that's 4 goals there. I think he got 2 goals last season, and I think, as I said earlier, I think maybe a goal the season before, a couple of goals the season before as well. So yeah, very, very strong in the air. Obviously, 6'3", 6'4", you would expect that to be the case. He ranks second amongst Kawasaki frontal defenders in terms of aerial duels, 1%. He's also won the most amount of aerial duels for them this season with 46. Let's talk about his both-footedness as well, because one thing in terms of the squad that obviously we're going to have to kind of balance is the fact that we're very stacked on that right, and obviously Takai is right-footed. The only natural left-footed defenders that we have, and I've got Vuskovic over here. I used this kind of squad depth team sheet from a video that I made yesterday, that came out yesterday with Seb and with Kish as well. We kind of did a bit of an audit of the squad and ranked the 5 players that we are most excited to see under Thomas Frank. This was a couple of days ago, sorry, so we didn't actually even speak about Takai at that point. Make sure to go and watch that video. It's my last video on the page. I'll put a little button to it here so you can click through it. I'll move Vuskovic back over here. We've got a lot of right-sided defenders. The only natural left-foot defenders that we have in terms of centre-halves are Van der Ven and Ben Davies. Now, obviously, Kevin Danso can probably play on that side. If we're going to play with a back three, obviously Danso can probably play in the centre or on the right, but you'd want a naturally left-footed defender, and that's obviously something we've spoke about when you look at the holes in the squad about maybe bringing in a left-back and left centre-back hybrid. I still think that's something that Tottenham should look at, and obviously we are heavily weighted towards the right-hand side in terms of the centre-backs. Dragusin may potentially leave the club if he does recover from that injury and an offer comes in this summer. He may potentially leave, and then that leaves us, if Romero was to stay or Romero replacement, with those four defenders on that side, Van der Ven and potentially Ben Davies, who might leave as well. So you'd imagine Spurs might then be in the market for another left-sided centre-back that can play that left-back role. But he is quite comfortable, Takai, on both feet, and that is kind of music to the ears of Spurs fans and the coaching staff in terms of balancing out that defence. Now we can see that here. You can see him here on the right-hand side of a back four where he tends to play. But here he opens up his body, lets it run across him, and he drives through these two forwards in the press with his left foot and then plays a lovely line-breaking pass. He's not the biggest line-breaking passer, Takai. It's more about his long distribution. And he does tend to keep it simple, playing out from the back a lot of the time, unless he is kind of going long. But again, here, he does step up. This is what we see Romero doing a lot, breaking those lines, running through from the left wing. It doesn't quite get there, but the idea is there. Again, here, they're playing out from the back. He's happy to let the ball run across his body, and then comes back inside there, chopping inside, giving that feint and allowing himself a little bit more time. Again, here, on the right-hand side, what we love is that he can slow the game down, have that control, roll his studs across the ball here, invite that pressure from the number 9, but he opens up his body, that little shimmy, and then goes away with his left again. So he's kind of opening up all of the angles. Again here, and I'm going to talk about his distribution next, you see him here on the left-hand side, gets in between the two strikers, pressing with his left foot, lovely little first-time touch to completely take those two players out of the game, and then it's a brilliant bombed diag over to the left-hand side, over to the right-hand side with his left foot over to the right wing. So again, he probably can, and I think this is probably where you'll see him get game time, whether it's in the cup competitions, maybe the league or the Champions League potentially. I do think it'll probably look a little bit something more like this, and then maybe they replace Davis with a new signing and Takai becomes that left centre-back depth. But I do still think we need someone that can maybe play both. Obviously, Davis naturally can do that, but I think we need to replace Ben Davis with someone else. So I think that would be okay for me. Van der Ven, Takai on the left. I'm not saying that's where he's going to play long-term, but I think for this season where he's going to get the most amount of minutes, given the depth that we do have on the right, if Spurs are serious about keeping him, we'll see how much game time he actually gets. But again, very much one for the future, obviously with Takai. But yeah, let's talk about the distribution as well, because again, he loves a big diagonal. Toby Alderweireld-esque ping. You can see him here spraying it out with great precision out to the left-hand side. If I just shuffle this back across here, you can see him again, sprayed diagonal, open up the pitch. Again, Tottenham are going to be coming up against low blocks. It's a challenge of ours to kind of try and break those down. Having a centre-back that is willing to be the aggressor and step up and able to switch the play like that, like Romero does, that's really, really vital in terms of breaking down low blocks. We've got other defenders who I think are excellent at getting through, evading pressure by driving through that space, like Danso and Vuskovic. But I think someone like Takai is able to do that kind of with his distribution, play out the press with that distribution. There's good examples of it going forward as well. Again, lovely little spray there. In terms of his calmness under pressure, again, I've not seen... It's difficult when you're doing these kind of videos when it's a fairly unknown player. When you watch compilations and watch highlights packages, you're not going to see some of the bad bits. But one thing in terms of his weaknesses that from articles and threads that I've read on Twitter, is that sometimes that passing range and decision making under pressure. That was something that I took from a Twitter thread from, I think, a Japanese football fan. He does tend to keep things simple, which isn't bad. I'll credit the Twitter thread. I think it's from Takunda, who's obviously watched a hell of a lot of him. I'll put the link to that thread in the description. And like I said, through watching the analysis, he doesn't tend to break lines. Keeps it simple a lot of the time. Sometimes he can get himself into a little bit of trouble under pressure. And again, sometimes that comes with the territory of being a bigger centre half with a bit more of a rigid frame. But again, these things you can under different coaches at a different level, maybe you can kind of coach that out of a player like that, or find a way to amplify their strengths and not expose him so much if those are his weaknesses. Again, it's just about decision making sometimes when playing out from the back. And I think another weakness is here of his, which is something we already spoke about, which is something that people have highlighted as well, is obviously that pace. There will be some forwards in the Premier League that will get him into trouble over time. A little bit like Van der Ven, to be honest. Van der Ven is the opposite. Van der Ven is quick, but sometimes when you are that kind of tall, it's difficult to move your hips and kind of, if you get turned by a player, even if you have got that pace, you can be in trouble. We saw that against Isak for Newcastle. So if a striker does change direction quickly, or if he's coming up against a tricky winger, maybe defending wide channels, then he might struggle a little bit. But again, under pressure, you can see him here, happy to go back inside, hold that defender off, and he has got that big frame to be able to push defenders away and then turn away. And again, the composure is something we also, despite if you look at his heat map for the season, he does venture forward occasionally. But again, I think that's probably more from his aggressive nature of stepping up to win the ball back. You can see a lot of play over the halfway line there. But when he does step up into the final third, this is what I love, this little clip here. This is kind of Romero-esque. And again, if you do want your centre-half to step up, if you are playing against a team that is quite settled in their block, this is lovely. Little pass into him. You can see the defender or the midfielder goes to press him, totally commits. And just that little feint is absolutely gorgeous, just to open up the play and then play it wide for that cross into the box. Look at the space that's left for them, the space for the fullback or the winger that goes to cross that. I'm not 100% sure. In terms of his recovery ability, like I said, that pace is an area which he might struggle. But again, he's not bad. Here, gets back, makes a really strong tackle in this example. To be fair, I think that one thing I would say about this is that when you actually watch the full clip, the striker does hesitate quite a bit over the length of time he takes to shoot. But he is able to get back and make the recovery. Again here, good sliding tackle. He likes a sliding tackle. He's very, very aggressive. Like I said, and again here, another good example. And finally, before we come on to the Al-Nasar game, defending those wide channels. Again, ideally, I think you'd want him... I think, personally, with someone like Takai, when you assess these strengths and weaknesses, that aerial ability in both box, or certainly from a defensive point of view, which we're going to come on to with the Al-Nasar game, very, very good in the air, very dominant, very physically dominant. With that lack of pace, although from some of these examples, he's decent at defending the wide channels. Again, you can see him here, aggressive, stepping up, making that sliding tackle, getting out there, again, using that strength at times. It's not a massive issue. But I think he'd probably be more suited to, if Spurs were going to play a back three under Frank at times, that central role, or maybe with a more defensive-minded fullback alongside him in a back four. But again, I don't think it's going to be a massive, massive issue, that lack of pace. Bearing in mind, there is going to be more protection in front of Takai with that probably what is more likely to be a pivot in front of him in defence. And again, he's always going to get help playing out from the back. One thing we know about Frank is that those pivot players both like to drop in to offer a lot of passing options. And again, they're not going to leave him too exposed on transition. And if he is partnered with a defender like Van der Ven alongside him, again, that allows Takai more license to step up. Or Vuskovic, who is someone who is a little bit more quicker on the recovery. But profile's quite similar to Luka Vuskovic, actually, I would say. He's in terms of the stats, he stacks up pretty similar. Vuskovic, like I said, a bit more like Kevin Danso, is a bit more of that carrier, driver. Nathan Collins at Brentford was like that a lot. Likes to break the lines through driving forward. You can see Vuskovic blows him out the water in terms of that. Doesn't like to get forward too often, Takai, as we said earlier. Both quite similar in terms of aerial win percentage. Both quite similar in terms of duel percentage. Defensive actions, Takai ranks higher. Again, Vuskovic, a bit more of that kind of ball playing or forward-thinking defender, despite the fact that Takai has a higher pass percentage completion than him, likes to hit the ball forward. He's more of a line breaker, but Vuskovic likes to drive that ball forward. Takai more progressive in his passing, and he's more of an aggressive defender than Vuskovic. But again, the aerial duels and aerial duels and ground duels stack up quite similarly. Again, both physical kind of freaks. Vuskovic, I think, maybe slightly taller. But again, to have two profiles like this with a lot of upside, a lot of potential is really, really good in the squad. Now, let's go on to this game against Al-Nasar, because I think it all kind of comes together for him quite nicely here in this game. Again, like I said, strong opposition. This is the AFC Champions League final. So, again, in relative terms, a big game. And again, we've signed younger players like Lucas Bergvall, Pat Matassar, Min Hyuk Yang over the last few years that haven't played in games against this quality of opposition with this amount of pressure. And again, it's Ronaldo at the end of his career. It's Mane after moving away from Liverpool. John Duran, though, very big handful of a striker in the Premier League. So he knows what it's like to play under pressure. He's played for Japan at the Olympics. That's very, very big. Played for Japan's senior team as well. More experience at an international level than the likes of Yang and Bergvall before they came in, which will stand him in good stead. And again, I do think one thing that slightly irritates me is that, especially it happens quite a lot when we sign players from Asia, it tends to get the whole club signing, shirt sales kind of deal. It's just like these players wouldn't be being bought in. We went through this with Yang last summer. They might not all burst into excellent players. They might not all kind of fruitfully develop at Tottenham and become world beaters, but I think Spurs are signing players that they feel have the potential to do that. It's not always going to go right. Spurs need to add more experience into the squad, but when you look at the squad, that is not an area, centre-half is not an area where we necessarily need that experience. So I think this signing makes a lot of sense for planning forward. Someone that can play on that left-hand side as well. I think it does make sense. And I think people that are kind of writing it off straight off the bat, it's quite lazy, to be honest. I don't really like it that much. But again, good experience at a young age, playing a game of this magnitude. Up against Ronaldo here, aggressive, again, into him, wins that ball off him. You can see him stepping up from that defensive line. Here, let me just move this across. Again, here you can see his aggression and that ability to drive forward on the ball. Again, Vuskovic kind of blows him out the water in terms of the stats, but he will like to do it at times. Steps up. And again, this is one thing I do like about Takai, and I think it's something that we're going to see quite a lot under Frank as well. You can see in front of the line there of Mane, Brozovic in midfield as well. Again, these are good players. You can see he's got two midfielders kind of coming towards him. And that then draws Mane Brozovic a little bit further forward, so we can just dink that little pass in behind over the top to the striker who can chest it down and then can turn and go. Brentford did this quite a lot last year, those two pivot players dropping in, which means you can either nip play through the thirds by playing out from the back, or it means you're dragging players onto you. That means there's more space for your attacking players. Playing that ball over the top, I think it's quite important that Takai has this sort of clipped little pass into the striker in his locker. Again here, that aerial ability in both boxes, aerial monster, you can see there, flicks it away. Up against Ronaldo, tight in the channel, helping him out. Again, aggressive against John Duran here, comes away with the ball, drives forward with it. And again, like I said, Vuskovic blows him out of the water in terms of those carrying numbers, but he wants to get forward at times. Little 1-2, and look at him driving here. Little bit of a nosebleed, poor decision making, should have passed it. But again, you kind of learn as you go. Mane here, good defensive work in the channel up against a tricky winger. Long throw comes in, heads away. Ball comes in, he gets there before Duran, leaves Duran on the floor there, and they're able to play out. Another cross comes in, up against Ronaldo, who, again, is 40, obviously, now, but one of the best aerial duel winners in the game. Ronaldo, the hang time in the air. Takai beats him there. Not quite sure what's happened with the image there, but again, getting in there before Ronaldo. This is a big deal for Takai. Again, here, let me just move this example across so you can just see the full picture. There we go. You can see here, composure on the ball, waits for the press, then he breaks the line, little flip around the corner. Not a massive line breaker in terms of his passing, prefers to go long, but he has got it in the locker as well. Again here, the reading of the game, cross comes in, he's in there to intercept it, drives forward, and then offers a passing option as well. Crossing coming in, again heading it away, bread and butter. And then from that same move, it goes out to the winger, gets a shot, he gets the block. Again here, against Duran, you can see Al-Nasar kind of building here. Mane looking for that pass into Duran, who is so good, we know, is so good at pinning his defender. We saw that in the Premier League, and Takai just stands up to him and says no, leaves him on the floor, gets there first. So, look, it's £5 million. I think this deal could end up being a bargain at some point in the future. You don't want to put too much pressure on it, but I think this is a smart bit of business. Spurs are clearly trying to go down the route of recruiting these youngsters with a lot of potential, and I think that is what you have to do, as well as balancing that with proven quality in the squad as well. And hopefully with the other players that we're going to look at bringing in this summer, in midfield, in attack, we do that, because we brought a lot of young players in. There's a lot of potential already at the club when you go through it with the likes of Bergvall, Sarr, Gray in midfield. That's very young. Obviously, there's a lot of potential still in the likes of Johnson, Odebear, Tell, Jamie Donnelly, etc. There's a lot of youngsters there, and we do need to add proven quality to it, but it's about finding that balance. And part of that balance is picking up these kind of players for very good fees that you feel like can be turned into really, really strong, solid players. And if Kota Takai goes on to become a player that makes 20 appearances a season, 25 appearances a season, rotation option, and then you sell him for profit down the line, those sometimes, that's what happens. Or he goes out on loan and then it doesn't quite work out, and then you sell him. At Spurs, it doesn't quite work out. These things happen. You have to kind of make these deals in football sometimes. And I'm quite glad that Spurs have gone down this path of doing it, because our track record of bringing in these youngsters so far under Johan Lang has been pretty good. So I trust in it. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know what you think of Kota Takai, and I'll see you in the next video. Nice one. Up Spurs. Make sure to subscribe as well.